Okay, so what we have discussed in the last lecture was some rules given under section 15 subsection 4 to determine the value of supply, and we started discussing only section 15 subsection 5, but we briefly discussed that. So let me share with you my notepad and then let me tell you that what we have discussed and what now we are going to discuss. Now see, this is what we have discussed till today. Conceptual clarity is always necessary. Just because I know how to solve the question, it doesn't mean that I am a knowledgeable person. I must know exactly that which subsection and which notification and which circular I am applying. Because in courts doesn't simply go by your own interpretation. Courts go with the exact sentence or exact word, exact point, exact subsection, that how you are saying or on what basis you are saying this. So we must know the things precisely. So the precise thing is 15.1 gives you the value of supply. It takes the help of 15.2 and 3 also. So this all is one concept to determine value of supply. This is one thing. I hope you are agree on this point with me. In some cases, when 15.1 is not applicable, condition is only if not applicable, then you take the help of 15.4. It will give you the value of supply. But one thing is sure, that out of 15.1 or 15.4, any one thing can be applicable, not both. Either you will apply 15.1, or because of inapplicability, non-applicability of 15.1, you have to apply 15.4. But both subsections cannot be applicable. This is the thing which I think must be clear in your mind. Either 15.1 or 15.4. But first and topmost priority is 15.1. Only when 15.1 is not applicable, then only you have the option to go for 15.4. Within 15.4, when I say I will apply 15.4, then I have to take the help of which rules? Rule 27, 28, 29, 30 and 31. And the last subsection is 15.5. This section says that in exceptional or in certain supplies, 15.5 has to be applied and not 15.1 and 15.4, even if applicable. So 15.5 is a special section, I can see. Otherwise, what is the concept? That apply 15.1. If 15.1 is not applicable, apply 15.4. But I cannot say that if 15.4 is not applicable, apply 15.5. I cannot say this language. 15.5 has to be applied. 15.5 has to be applied. In some cases, it is must to apply 15.5. I cannot check in those cases 15.1 and 15.4. If this concept is clear, please raise your hand. What I have said, if it is clear, then please raise your hand. Okay, next point. So now the purpose is to tell you which are those cases where 15.5 has to be applied and not 15.1 and 15.4. One such case I have covered in the last lecture. That was betting and gambling income. That was rule 31A. In case of lottery, betting, gambling, etc., I have not checked the application of 15.1. I have not checked the application of 15.4. Directly I applied whatever rule 31 was saying to me. 100 divided by 128 multiplied by something. So now in such cases you can easily check that without application of 15.1 and 15.4, I have directly computed the value in case of supply of lottery. So under 15 subsection 5, one such rule is rule 31A, where I have directly computed the value as per the rules, as per the manner given under rule 31A. So I have discussed only one rule of 15.5. Now technically in my hands now I have three different subsections: 15.1, 15.4 and 15.5. In some cases 15.1 gives me the value, in some cases 15.4 gives me the value, in some cases 15.5 gives me the value. Apart from these three also, I have fourth different way of determining the value, and it is rule 32. Rule 32. It's not section, it is a separate rule 32. So this will be the fourth way of determining the value. Now under rule 32, it is mentioned that it is optional. This rule is not compulsory. It is optional for the supplier to determine the value of supply as per, it is optional for the supplier to determine the value of supply in certain special cases of supply. This rule 32 will discuss only some special cases of supply. In certain special cases of supply, as per rule 32. So this is the fourth way to determine the value of supply. One way is 15.1, another way is 15.4, third way is 15.5, and fourth is not section, separately rule 32. It's not compulsory. Supplier has a freedom to decide whether the supplier wants to compute the value of supply as per rule 32, and if not as per rule 32, then what? Maybe as per rule 15.1 or 15.4. That's it. So it's optional for the supplier to determine the value of supply in certain special cases of supply as per rule 32. And if he does not want, then of course without any hesitation he can determine. It is her legal right, her or his legal right. Then he can determine the value of supply as per section 15.1 or 15.4 as the case may be. As the case may be. So 15.1 is a section, 15.4 is a section, 15.5 is a section, and rule 32 also gives you a manner, some procedures to determine the value of supply in certain special cases. But rule 32 is optional. In case supplier thinks that no, rule 32 is giving me higher value, Supplier has a right to ignore rule 32 and determine the value as per either rule 15.1 or as per section 15.1 or 15.4. I'm not writing that he can determine the value as per section 15.5. I'm not writing it. Why I'm not writing it? Because under 15.5, I have discussed with you only one supply, which is lottery, and this lottery, when I will be discussing rule 32, lottery is not covered here. Lottery is not covered here. That is why if lottery is not at all covered here, that means for lottery you cannot apply rule 32. So why should I write 15.5 here? So I will tell you now those supplies which are covered under rule 32. So first supply is money exchange business. Money exchange business. Second supply is booking of air tickets. Third supply is life insurance business. Fourth supply is dealing in second-hand goods. Fifth supply is redeemable vouchers. Sixth supply is services provided by notified service providers. Notified, so some special cases. Notified service providers between distinct persons. These 6 services are there in rule 32. In all the cases, I can determine the value of supply as per section 15.1 also. There is no problem. 15.1 doesn't stop you to apply it. 15.1 says that if buyer and seller are related and price is the sole criteria, then in all the cases you can apply me. This is what 15.1 says. So in all the cases I can apply 15.1. But fortunately, I got another option from the government of India that in these cases I can apply 15.1 or I can apply rule 32. It depends which option is giving me better results. So it is optional now. I'm using 15.1. Why? Because 15.1 is normal section. In case 15.1 is not applicable, then I have 15.4 also. These two are only there. I'm not writing 15.5. Why? Because in 15.5 only lottery I have covered, and you can see lottery is not included here. So for lottery you don't have rule 32. That is why in the theory also I have written that either determine the value as per rule 32. If you don't want, then determine the value either as per rule 15.1. If 15.1 is not applicable, then apply 15.4. That's it. I hope the structure of rule 32 is also clear. This is the fourth way to determine value of supply. After 15.1, 15.4, 15.5, then we have rule 32. But that is only for 6 different types of supply, which I'll be going to discuss now. But please raise your hand if the structure in your mind is clear, because most of the people don't know the structure in their mind. They can compute the value, but they will not be able to tell you exactly under which section or rule they are computing and why. So if the structure is clear, please raise your hand. Now let me start discussing with you my first supply, money exchange business. In this cases, In this case, what is the way to determine the value of supply as per Rule 32? But it is your choice. If you don't want to follow Rule 32, government says no problem. Follow then relevant section 15.1 or 15.4. Take your own decision. So my first supply. Determination of value of supply of service in relation to purchase or sale of foreign currency. It's money exchange business. Rule 32, sub rule 2. Sub rule 2. It is sub rule 2. Now, how you determine the value? So there are two different situations. So I will write here, make a table, case 1, situations, and value of supply. Now suppose I want to convert dollar into rupee, or I want to convert rupee into dollar. In both the situation, what is happening? One of the currency is Indian rupee. This is my situation 1, where one of the currencies exchanged, is Indian rupee. I'm using the word exchanged, so it does not matter that I am purchasing rupee or I am selling rupee. Exchange means either you are a purchaser or seller, does not matter, but one of the currency involved will be rupee. Now what is the value of supply? Then the difference. So the value of supply is the difference in buying rate and selling rate. Difference, if I'm using the word difference, positive, negative doesn't arise. It is difference. Difference can never be positive or negative. Difference means difference. It can be plus or minus. So difference in the buying rate or the selling rate. Any one thing will happen, either you are buying or selling. Difference in the buying rate or the selling rate, whatever is the case, and because either will be you are buying or selling, so both will not be there. Either you will be having buying rate or selling rate. Any one thing will be there. So this difference is what? In this rate and the RBI's reference rate. For that currency. Like if you are converting your rupee into dollar, then what is the RBI's rate to convert rupee into dollar? So the difference between RBI's rate and your actual rate, that is the difference basically. And that currency multiplied by, so this difference multiplied by total units of that currency. So you get total value. If you don't multiply it, then you get the difference of 1 unit. You multiply by the total units exchange, you get the difference of entire bunch of units, total units of that currency. Very simple. But so many times reference rate is not applicable. So if RBI's reference rate is not available, then the value of supply will be equal to 1% of the gross amount of Indian rupee involved. That's it. See an example now. before the example, let me first cover this concept that if one of the currency is rupee, then the difference in buying rate, suppose you are buying the currency, then difference in buying rate and RBI's reference rate for that currency at that time exactly, not for any day. The moment you are changing it at that time, what is the RBI's rate for that currency at that time? Multiplied by total units. If RBI's reference rate, then at least you know how much Indian rupee is involved, multiplied by 1%. That's it. If none of the Indian currency is rupee, suppose you want to convert dollar into pound, then what will happen? Case 2. Where neither of the currencies exchanged is Indian rupee. Suppose dollar into pound is going on, then what will happen? So then you have to assume that had these currencies been converted into Indian rupee, what would have been the figure? And then you have to take the least figure into 1%. So I can say 1%, value of supply is 1% of lesser of the two amounts, the person changing the money would have received had those currencies been converted into Indian rupee. On that date, now every day the exchange rate changes. So that should be on that particular day when currencies were exchanged. On that day, at the RBI's reference rate. So 1% of the lesser of the two amounts the person changing the money would have received had those currencies being converted into Indian rupee on that day at the RBI's reference rate. Now let me have an example. For example, on 15th March 2020, X converted $100 into rupees 6200. Please wait a second. Hello? Yes? Acha, एक minute. X converted $100 into rupees 6,200 through Eastern Union exchangers. For example, this person is the service providers, Eastern Union exchangers, and X is the recipient. RBI's reference rate for $1 is equal to rupees 63. Now, what is the value of supply? This is the question. What is the value of supply? What is the value of supply? So I can compute the value of supply. So X has two options. X can compute the value of supply as per 15.1 or 15.4 as the case may be, or what? Or as per rule 32. So I'm not discussing here what will be the value as per 15.1 or 15.4. I'm discussing under rule 32 what is the value. Is RBI's reference rate of 15th March available? Answer is yes. It is 63. At what rate you have actually exchanged? At 62, because $100 is equal to 6,200. So by default it is $1 is 62. So what is the difference? Difference is 1 rupee. Rupees 63 minus rupees 62. So difference is 1 rupee multiplied by total conversion. So 1 rupee is the difference per dollar. And if $100 have been converted, so the answer comes out to be rupees 100. This is the value of supply, and you can say in fact it is very less. This is the value of supply as per rule 32. If I make a change, for example, RBI's reference rate is not available. If I make a change that RBI's reference rate is not available, if this is the change, then what will happen? So X will compute the value by applying either 15.1 or 15.4 as the case may be. So I'm not discussing those. Or as per rule 32, it's choice of the supplier, sorry, recipient of service. Not the recipient of service. I'm saying here wrong. I'm not talking about from X point of view. I'm talking about from Eastern. So this concept is correct. It's from supplier side. Eastern Union exchanges. By mistake, I have written X. So this is from Eastern Union exchangers point of view. Because it is supplier's option to determine the value of supply, not recipients. Similarly, here also not X, but the supplier. It is strange that you have not told me that I'm doing this mistake. So you must tell me this whenever you think that something different is going on in the lecture, which is against the provision. So make sure do this correction, not from recipient point of view, but supplier's point of view. So Eastern Union exchanger can either apply 15.1 or 15.4 depending upon the situation, or rule 32 of course. So if you go by rule 30, if RBI's reference rate is not available, then how much is the Indian amount involved? The Indian currency involved in this case will be 6,200. Then in that case the answer is flat 1% of 6,200. So the value of supply will be only 62 rupees. Please raise your hand if this example is clear. Next point. Now suppose in the next example, another example. Now suppose dollars are converted into pound. $9,000 is converted into pound 4500. Now dollar is converted into pound. Now none of the currency is Indian rupee. Then what option you have? Now suppose RBI's reference rate on the day when the currencies were exchanged is $1 is equal to 63 rupees and 1 pound is equal to rupees 83. Now if this is the situation where none of the currency exchanged is Indian rupee, how the supplier will compute the value of supply? So who is the supplier? Eastern Union Exchangers. They will compute the value of supply by what? They have to first assume that they have to first decide whether they will apply 15.1 or 15.4 as the case may be, or rule 32. So I am discussing only rule 32. I am not discussing that option. Under rule 32, what they would have got had they converted these into Indian rupee. So had they converted $9,000 into Indian rupee, they would have, the Indian rupee would have involved is this much. Had they converted pound into Indian rupee, the amount of Indian currency involved would have been this much. So how much is this? 5,67,000. 373,500. So which is less? 373,500 multiplied by 1%, it will be the answer. So the value of supply will be 3735. That's it. I hope the concept is clear. Next point. Now if you notice very strange thing, do you know what another option is available? Rule 32 is optional. Either 15.1 or 15.4, any of these two. Compare this with rule 32. Okay, so I can exercise the option. But do you know, within rule 32, there are two options, option 1 and 2. Rule 32 itself is optional, and within rule 32 there are two options. For the time being, I have discussed only option number 1. This is option number 1 going on. Government says no issue, we are giving you another option, and out of those two options you decide which one is better, and again compare that with this, and then take your best decision. I hope the concept is clear. So now I am discussing option 2 in money exchange business. So what is that money exchange business? Another option. Now here there are 3 different situations. Case 1. Now this option is very simple, where the Indian rupee involved is till 1 lakh rupees. Exchange is till 1 lakh rupees. Then government says the value of supply you can take is higher of the following. 1 pound 50 rupees, 2 pound 50 rupees, 3 pound 50 rupees, 4 pound 50 rupees, 5 pound 50 rupees, 6 pound 50 rupees, 7 pound 50 rupees, 8 pound 50 rupees, 9 pound 50 rupees, 10 pound 50 rupees, 11 pound 50 rupees, 12 pound 50 rupees, 13 pound 50 rupees, 14 pound 50 rupees, 15 pound 50 rupees, 16 pound 50 rupees, 17 pound 50 rupees, 18 pound 50 rupees, 19 pound 50 rupees, 20 pound 50 rupees, 21 pound 50 rupees, 22 pound 50 rupees, 23 pound 50 rupees, 24 pound 50 rupees, 25 pound 50 rupees, 26 pound 50 rupees, 27 pound 50 rupees, 28 pound 50 rupees, 29 pound 50 rupees, 30 pound 50 ru higher of A point, flat rupees 250 or 1% of the gross amount of currency exchanged. Where the gross amount of currency exchange, so I am not repeating, where the gross amount of currency exchanged exceeds 1 lakh, but less than is equal to 10 lakh. If this is the case, then value of supply is flat, rupees 1000 plus 0.5% of the gross amount of currency exchange. Third, where the gross amount of currency exchange exceeds 10 lakh. Now I'm talking about Indian rupee only. The answer is lower of the following, not higher, lower of the following: 60,000 or 1,000 rupees 5,500 plus 0.10% of the gross amount of currency exchange. I should use the word currency exceeding 10 lakh. It is like income tax where you are defining these slabs. In the above case also, I should use the word currency exchanged exceeds 1 lakh. Because till 1 lakh, 1% of 1 lakh, 1,000 is fixed. Okay, so this is how the chain is going on. Then for difference 9 lakh into 0.5%, 4,500 plus 1,000 fixed. So this is how they have derived at 5,500. So it is just like this slab, that previous one plus the new one. That's it. So now within exchange business, there are two options. Out of those two, which one is better? You can decide. That will be rule 32 value. Compare again that better with another better if you have, and then take the best decision. So government is giving you two options indirectly. First, within options, take the best value. Then compare that best value of rule 32 with sectional values of 15.1 or 15.4, and then you decide whichever is better. This option 2, there is some restriction. If you opt for this option, then do you know what limitation you have? You cannot change it for the entire year. You have to follow it regularly. This is what the point is. Supplier has to follow this for the entire financial year. Has to follow this option 2 if he avails it. Follow this for the entire year. It cannot be changed in between them. Entire financial year. This is the point which should be noted. This option, if can be exercised, and if will be exercised, then you cannot withdraw it. You have to apply it continuously for the entire financial year. This is the point. Next and the final example is now in the previous examples, do you know one thing was by default? That by default thing was that when I computed this value, do you know that by default I assumed that by default it was assumed that the supplier is not availing, you must write this in the exam, is not availing option 2, only then I can say that this is the answer. So I'm not availing option 2. Here also when I computed the value 62, I applied the same assumption, which though at that time I didn't write. Now since you know the option, you have to write in the exam that the supplier is not availing option 2. Here also when you computed the value 3735, by default the same thing you should write here also, that the supplier is not willing to opt for option 2 of money exchange. Only then you can say that this is the correct answer. Now, what is the example? That is Eastern Union Exchanger supplier has exchanged $1,000, or you can say 10,000, to rupees 6,40,000. Now by default it means $1 is equal to rupees 64. Question says, what is the value of supply? Now answer is, what is the value of supply? I can determine under 15.1. I means this exchanger supplier side. He can determine under 15.1 or 15.4 as the case may be, but I'm not discussing that. He can compare, or it can, Eastern Union Exchanger can compare it with the rule 32. Within rule 32, I found that it is rule 32 sub rule 2, in which there are two options, option 1 and option 2. If the person goes by option 1, where one of the currency exchange is Indian rupee, what is the answer then? RBI reference rate not available, then the answer is flat. Indian currency involved multiplied by 1%. So the answer under option 1 will be 6,400 rupees. In second option, how much is the Indian currency involved? 6,40,000, which is between 1 lakh to 10 lakh. So what is the answer in that case? 1,000 flat plus 5% of currency exceeding 10 lakh, exceeding 1 lakh. So 1,000 flat plus 0.5% of currency exceeding 1 lakh. It is just like income tax slabs. So this will give you the value of 3,700. So which option is better for the supplier? That supplier has to decide. Financially it looks better, but it comes with limitations. If this option is taken, it cannot be changed. So let the decision goes to the supplier. He has to decide. It has to decide. Eastern Union Exchanger. Answer can be 64 or 3,700. That will become the answer of rule 32. That answer can again be compared with value of 15.1 and 15.4. That's it. So today I have covered money exchange business value determination. That's all from my side, and in the next lecture I will cover the remaining services of rule 32. This first service was a little bit lengthy. These are not so lengthy. Okay, these are not so lengthy. We can cover all these in the next lecture. That's all from my side. Goodbye.